Let's move on to our next block. This is the ongoing trial of the murder of Laken Riley, which is taking place down in Georgia. We can put the first element up on the screen. This is the write-up from the New York Post. You can see a picture of Laken Riley on the screen there. If you're watching it, Laken Riley was 22. And I'm just going to read a little bit from an ABC News report about the trial yesterday. The last moments before Laken Riley was killed while out on a run on the University of Georgia's campus were shown in court on Tuesday, on the third day of the trial involving the murder of the 22-year-old nursing student. The Augusta University student was found dead in a wooded area on the Athens campus on February 22nd. Jose Ibarra, 26, is accused of murdering Riley after prosecutors said she, quote, refused to be his rape victim. Ibarra, an undocumented migrant who was charged with malice murder and felony murder in connection with her death, which became a rallying cry for immigration reform for many conservatives, including President Donald Trump. So as this murder trial plays out, it is harrowing, and I've seen it actually covered by a lot of the sort of women-centric publications like People that cover true crime a lot, because American women are very interested in true crime. I'm not saying that in any sort of misogynistic way. That's literally statistically true, like there's polling on it. And that means it's sort of undermining the point that ABC just made in its article, that it became a rallying cry throughout the presidential election, the case study of Laken Riley. And I think, Ryan, it was actually one of the most important moments in the 2024 election in terms of like deciding people's minds changing on the Biden immigration policy, sort of put a face on it for a lot of people who were thinking about the Biden administration and Kamala Harris and deciding, what they wanted to see. I think it makes people more comfortable with Donald Trump, for example, when there's a picture of a 22-year-old nursing student and the sort of horrible situation that she endured. And that's not trying to politicize, it's just trying to explain why I think it was powerful in the election.
I guess, it's a horrific tragedy.
Yeah.
It always makes me uncomfortable when people, when a particular tragedy gets its attention because of who the assailant is, rather than, and because it fits a political agenda. Like, people who are born here in this country commit horrific murders, actually every day.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot of
their
research.
Victims are no more, no less, worthy of our attention, and so that part of it makes me uncomfortable. But of course, it's horrifying, and I think the thing that has helped to catapult it into the public's imagination is also the way that it happened.
Yeah,
just going for a jog, and getting it's the worst nightmare of people who are running early in the morning, as the sun is coming up.
Right.
That some murderer is going to jump out of the bushes, and it's out of that kind of storybook fear that fortunately is rare, but when it happens, it's going to get elevated, and then when it turns out that the person was here illegally, then it's going to be weaponized. So yeah, we'll get a verdict in the next couple days probably.
Yeah, and that's the thing with this trial is that it's really playing out like a pretty traditional true crime trial does these days, where you're hearing, you're seeing the mother's last text messages to Laken Riley, and just all of the sort of heart-wrenching details that come out in trials.
And his brother is supposed to testify. He's been called,
and he won't. He's not testifying. Jose Ibarra is not testifying. So that his brother's supposed to testify.
And according to one of the witnesses who was, and it was complicated, that he said that he basically acknowledged that his brother did it, and that if the woman said anything about it, he'd kill her too.
And he's supposed to, so part of this is that the prosecution, the defense seems to be pointing its finger subtly, as some people have said, at the brother. That's part of the defense, is suggesting that it wasn't Ibarra. So it's a very complicated trial. It's no surprise that it's getting as much attention as it is. Now, in the New York Post...
Right, because the quote from the brother was, "I'll kill you too," or something like that.
Yeah.
Which suggests that he's saying that he was the actual killer, not the brother.
Yeah, and he was getting some federal benefits, Ibarra was. That's why, we probably disagree on the implications of this, because I agree with you that there is a lot of evidence that people who come into the country illegally actually commit crimes at a lower rate. And while that might be true, I mean, there's competing research on it. The research that I've looked at, it seems to lean more heavily into the direction that it's a lower rate of crime committed. But there's partisans on both sides doing this research, so it's hard to actually get to the bottom of that. What I would say, though, is, I think most Americans would look at, I have the CBP numbers up in front of me right now, fiscal year 24, 1,000 cases of people who were in the country illegally committing assault, battery, domestic violence, 2,800 cases of driving under the influence, 30 cases of homicide and manslaughter. This is compared to the rest of the country. Obviously, these are small numbers, but when it's...
And you need to know the denominator. How many people are here illegally? Is it 12 million? Is it 20 million?
Right, which we literally don't know.
Right.
We genuinely don't have a clear number on that question. But if you are the family of Laken Riley and you're looking at an alleged Tren de Aragua member who was getting taxpayer-funded flights from Kennedy to Atlanta, JFK to Atlanta, and he's already in the country, it's not legally in the country, this is already a question, it probably will reflect on the immigration policy from your perspective. We have plenty of, to your point, we have plenty of murder in the country as it is. Mm-hmm. We have plenty of our own domestic problems to deal with as it is, and so that's the extent to which I think it reflects on that, is like that question of fairness. So we probably disagree on that, but that's, I think, why the trial resonated with so many people in the election.
Yeah.
For sure. We have this clip of Chad Wolf, who was a Trump administration. He was DHS under Trump, wasn't he? I think he was like acting, or was he? Yeah, he was acting Secretary of DHS. I don't think he was ever formally confirmed. Here's how he reacted on Fox News for a taste of how we could see the Trump administration handle this down the road.
Well, it's beyond awful, because any criminal act, particularly this one committed by an illegal alien, is one that's preventable. They shouldn't be here to begin with, and they were facilitated. This individual appears to be facilitated by the Biden administration's border security policies, right? He's from Venezuela. He gets in on a parole. He gets flown and transported to New York City. He's not happy there, right? So New York then moves him to Georgia. All of this could have been avoided if you actually have policies in place that deter this illegal immigration, and folks that do claim asylum, do claim some type of protections under law. We don't simply release them into the country, right? You use Remain in Mexico, or you use other things that were put in place to hold these individuals and then allow them their time in court if they get to do that.
So, it'll be obviously a powerful talking point for the Trump administration in the months ahead as they decide, that question of mass deportations, which is, we continue to hear from Trump administration officials or incoming Trump administration officials themselves, is very much on the table. Now, mass deportation is not a technical, clinical term. We don't know what mass deportation would actually be. We were told that it would start with the quote-unquote worst of the worst, the people who are here and already have rap sheets or have been, coming in and out and trafficking, whatever it is. Now, that's a very difficult thing to do in and of itself. So we don't know.
Yeah, what's going to happen if Trump empties out the jails and prisons, deports people who are here illegally, but were serving sentences. They then come back into the country, get around his magical wall, commit a crime. Are we going to get wall-to-wall coverage of that, you think?
I mean, it's a pretty, and will that then be held against the Trump administration? Right. Yeah, I mean. Because
it wouldn't happen if the person had been left in prison.
Yeah, I mean, Republicans have held the Republican administration's feet to the fire over immigration. I mean, this was actually part of the problem with the Cornyn versus Thune versus Rick Scott conflict we talked about last week, is people were absolutely furious about how Cornyn and Thune had handled the immigration bill under Langford and McConnell last year. So maybe, but obviously it's always different when it comes to Donald Trump.
Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.